Interview haben mit dem Sullenberger, mit dem Pilot, der in Manhattan notgewasselt hat mit 150 Passagieren.
Was willst du fragen?
Fragen vorbereitet. Es nimmt mich Wunder, was man zur Vorbereitung für so Notsituationen machen kann. Es nimmt mich Wunder, ob es Erfahrungen gibt, die man übertragen kann auf andere Branchen, nicht nur auf die Airline-Industrie, zum Beispiel auf die Maschinenindustrie oder auf die Unfallverhütung, wie man sie haben in unseren Gewerbes- und Industriebetrieben in der Schweiz.
Das ist ja Sicherheitsexperte, gell?
Das ist richtig. Er hat jahrelang Schulungen gegeben für Flugsicherheit. Er war jahrelang im Militär und dann war er etwa 20 Jahre lang in der zivilen Luftfahrtindustrie.
Was macht er jetzt?
Er ist pensioniert.
Wie alt ist er?
5 Jahre älter als ich. 62.
Ah, so ein junger Schnüffer. Und wieso ist er jetzt bei JeanRichard?
Und als Träger für die Werbung von dieser JeanRichard haben sie den Sullenberger engagiert. Und zwar nach dem Motto, der Sullenberger hat in 208 Sekunden 150 Menschenleben gerettet. Das ist ein Vorbild. Wir haben eine Uhr, die für Vorbilder getragen werden. I'm a pilot for 28 years and I'm a power pilot for another 20 years. But I have a work safety magazine and I want to ask you about work safety in context to your landing.
Sure.
From your curriculum, I learned that you started your flying career with soaring. Later on, you continued a career as a jet pilot with the United States Air Force to become a flight instructor and safety specialist already before you entered civil aviation. As a soaring and a single-engine pilot, I'm today owner of a work safety magazine. I'm a member of Swiss Aero Club and have been responsible during 4 years as president for the International Air Cadet Exchange. Besides work safety, I address also safety issues on accidents which happen off work. I published, for example, reports from a trainer in pilot psychology and accident prevention for soaring clubs. In the aftermath of your successful landing, I read your book Highest Duty. Your reaction and fine landing with the Airbus 320 on the Hudson River made you a very popular person on a national and international level. Question: looking back to your career, what are the ingredients in training and studies to have a successful life as a pilot?
Well, I think first, curiosity, having natural intellectual curiosity is a huge advantage. Having flying being a lifelong passion is another big advantage. When someone's following a passion as opposed to just going to work, you're willing to work harder. You're willing to become more expert at it. You're willing to become more knowledgeable. I describe that as being able to be mindful, and mindfulness I define as thoughtful awareness. It's sensitizing oneself to risk and to seeing connections. It's understanding that most bad outcomes are not the result of a single fault, a single error, a single failure. Instead, they are the end result of a causal chain of events. And if we can break that chain, if we can sensitize ourselves to risk and see these connections and stop that, we can change the outcome. And of course, in aviation, we have safety reporting systems, we have formal lessons learned processes that result in recommendations for improvements. All these things together help make aviation so safe.
An emergency is something a pilot exercises on a regular basis on a simulator or with small airplanes in real. But each emergency is different. Has your training helped you in this particular situation over Manhattan, and how?
Well, the situation that we suddenly found ourselves in was a novel one that we never specifically trained for. But we were able to take what we did know and adapt it and apply it in a new way to solve a problem that we never seen before. And that's what we were able to do so successfully, so quickly.
How does the crew function in the situation of an emergency? Was the cabin crew aware of the cold air and water temperatures that day and therefore instructed the passengers to wait for the rescue boat on the wings?
Of course, the time pressure and the workload were so extremely high, I did not have time to tell the cabin crew or the passengers the whole story. I had time only for one brief announcement. I said, "This is the captain, brace for impact." I chose my words very carefully, and I told them just enough to help prevent injury during the landing so that they would be able to evacuate. But they didn't know the full story until we had actually landed.
Did you push the ditching button, and was that the reason why the Airbus floated so long?
We didn't get to that part of the checklist. The checklist that we were given to use was a 3-page checklist meant to be used at a much higher altitude. We had, as it turned out, only 208 seconds, just under 3.5 minutes from the time we hit the birds, lost thrust of the engines, until we had landed. We got through the first page of the checklist. And several of the most important remedial actions I took by memory before we even got to them in the checklist. But pushing the ditch button was not one of them. As it turned out, just landing on the water tore open the metal skin of the airplane underneath the tail, let it much more water than the ditching push button was designed to prevent. The ditching push button only closes the pressurization flow valve, which is about that big, and the hole that was torn in the airplane just by the act of landing on the water was large enough to drive a small automobile through.
In which configuration and with which speed have you flown the touchdown? How much hydraulic power was at your disposition to set flaps and slats?
We landed at flaps 2, and fortunately the left engine-driven hydraulic pump was providing power for the hydraulic system, and by the time that was no longer the case, let me try that wasn't a complete answer. I had full hydraulic pressure for the entire flight, and all the flight controls were powered. And we also had uninterrupted electrical power, which was important in this fly-by-wire airplane, where there's no longer a direct mechanical connection between the flight controls in the cockpit and the flight control services in the wings and tail.
Are there any lessons to learn that you established after this well-known landing?
Well, part of the formal lessons learned process in the United States is that the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board investigates the accident, makes findings of probable cause and contributing factors, and then makes important recommendations. And some 24 recommendations were made as a result of our flight, including the recommendation that all domestic flights carry life vests and not just have seat cushions for flotation.
Question 7. Did you follow special training, and what kind of training before you were back on your seat as a pilot in command of a commercial aircraft?
Since it had been several months since I'd flown, I did go through classroom and simulator recurrent training to be fully qualified to fly again as airline captain.
What advice can you give for safety responsibles, safety engineers and management in other branches to prevent employees from harm and reducing hazards based on your experiences as a pilot, as a safety instructor, and with the landing on the Hudson River?
The more I talk to diverse groups in many different domains and industries, the more similarities I see across domains, which really shouldn't be surprising, because what we're talking about ultimately is how to improve human performance in complicated systems that all involve inherent risk. So what we've learned is that these human skills that some call soft skills as opposed to hard skills, but really aren't soft skills. They're just human skills, have the potential to save more lives than technical skills.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, wonderful speaking with you, and good luck. Thank you for this.
Thank you.